friends, it's Lisa. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're creating a beautiful card using the Moments in Time die set along with a few previously released products. So let's take a closer look at the Moments in Time die set. Now if you watched the new release video, you may have already seen this along with the shaker card I created as a sample. Now I used some of the gears inside the shaker and it turned out so fun. But today I'm going to walk you through one way to use this set to create a really beautiful, elegant card. Today I'm starting my creative process with some hot foiling. I'm using our Heart Bloom hot foil plate set along with the new Lattice Luxe hot foil plate. If you haven't seen the Lattice Luxe yet, it's a repeating pattern which makes it really easy to trim down and fit an A2 card or larger cards. We also have a coordinating stencil that lets you color inside the diamond shapes while leaving that crisp white space around them, which gives a really clean, detailed look. When you're setting up for your foiling, you want your plate design facing down onto the foil with the shiny side of the foil facing up. Once we have this in place, we're going to flip it over so that the white cardstock is facing up, and then we're going to lay this on our foiling platform and start the heating process. Now, my go-to for hot foiling is the Spellbinders Glimmer Machine along with Spellbinders Foil. It's what I reach for every time I'm working with hot foil plates. Now I'm also going to go ahead and foil that Lattice Luxe background, and we're going to do some sentiments from that Heart Bloom set. Now this set has several really great sentiments, including a Happy Grandparents' Day. But today I'm going to be using Happy Mother's Day for this card. You'll also see me foil the larger love word. I always like to give myself options, but in the end, I decided not to use it for this particular design. When you're foiling multiple sentiments, one tip I want to give you is to leave yourself a little space between each one if you're going to be using die cuts to cut these out later on. And again, try not to overthink the foiling process. Let the machine do the work for you and try to avoid running it through more than once because that can lead to overfoiling. Another thing I like to do, especially with larger background plates like this Lattice Luxe plate, is not worrying about placing it perfectly straight on the platform. I like to give it a little twist as I lay it down. And letting it go through the machine at a slight angle can actually help give you a cleaner result. Now, once everything is foiled, you can really start to see how all of these elements are going to come together, and that gold just adds such a beautiful, elegant touch to the design. Now we're moving into one of my favorite parts, ink blending. I've pulled some of my favorite inks and blending brushes for this. The inks I'm using are from Pink Fresh Studio and Altenew, and for smaller areas, I love my Altenew blending brushes. Now for larger areas, you really can't beat the Simon Hurley brushes. They are absolutely amazing. But since we're going with smaller areas, I'm going to stick with my Altenew brushes for now. I'm working on an Altenew sticky mat on top of a glass board, and this is actually how I store it. I keep it right on the glass board. I stand it up in a drawer, one of the smartest things I've ever done because it keeps everything ready to go. Now I'm grabbing the quick color stencil for the heart bloom so we can quickly bring this image to life and move on to assembling our clock. And before I jump in, I want to share a little inspiration for this card. I actually created a card last year using this same technique of combining products. Now I used the heart bloom with our 3-tier cake stencil and die bundle, and I love how it turned out. So I find myself going back to my previous designs a lot when I need inspiration. It's a great way to spark new ideas from something you already loved creating. Now, I'd love to know, where do you find your inspiration? All right, let's get this blending started. I'm going in with yellow and orange inks for the blooms, and honestly, whatever inks you have in your stash will work perfectly. Color really comes down to personal preference. For the leaves, I'm going to bring in greens along with a touch of navy. That navy adds such a beautiful depth and it really makes the gold pop against this white cardstock. Now, you'll see how quickly this comes together with the stencil. It's such an easy way to get a detailed, layered look without a lot of effort. Now we're going to bring in the Moments in Time die set and start building our card. I'm using my Spellbinders Scout die cutting machine for this, and I love showing this because you don't need a large machine to work with this set. A smaller machine like this works perfectly. I'm starting by die cutting the clock base from navy cardstock, and I'm going to run this through twice so I can stack 2 of these bases and add a little extra dimension. So this base is what we're going to build everything on. Next, I'm moving on to the clock face. And before I cut into this, I'd like to take a minute and play around with the placement so I get the most out of that beautiful heart bloom image we just created. Once I'm happy with the placement, I'll run it through the machine using the larger round die to cut the outer face shape. And then I'll run it back through with the smaller round die to create the inner clock face. Now, if you prefer a flatter card, you could skip this step, but I love dimension, so I'm going to build this up. And this is also where you can see how easily this die set creates a shaker window. If you wanted to turn this into a shaker card, you would just add a piece of acetate to this frame. Next, I'm cutting the bell and top detail pieces using gold cardstock. This really elevates the design and adds that extra touch of elegance. Once all of the pieces are cut, we're going to start assembling everything together. Now we're ready to start assembling all of our pieces. I'm using a combination of liquid glue and foam adhesive to build the clock. The glue gives me a little bit of wiggle room for placement, and the foam adds that dimension that I love. I'm starting by attaching the Lattice Lux gold foiled background to my A2 card base. That's going to be the foundation for everything. Next, I'll begin building the clock, layering the base, adding the face, and then bringing in all of those detail pieces. I also die cut the clock hands from that same gold cardstock, and I'm gluing those in place. One thing I decided to change, I foiled my sentiments onto navy cardstock to replace the foiled on white cardstock that we did at the beginning of the video. This navy really helps the gold foil stand out and draws your eye right into the center of the design. Now, once everything is in place, you can really see how all of these elements come together into one finished piece. I love how this card came together. The gold, the navy, and all that dimension really make it stand out. I hope this gives you some inspiration to pull out your Moments in Time die set and create something beautiful of your own. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment letting me know how you would use this design. Thank you so much for spending time with me today, and I will see you in the next one.